Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on reducing barriers to inclusion using wearable technology. My name is Heather Evans, and I'm Managing Director of the Community Living Ontario Foundation. And I work with all of our strategic partners. And today we'd like to say a special thanks to Awake Labs for putting this presentation together. Awake Labs builds apps to measure stress and strong emotions so people can spend time enjoying their life together. You will be hearing from Paul a little later in the session, one of Awake Labs co-founders. Thank you so much to Awake Labs for sharing today a variety of guest speakers who will share the success of their technology. And throughout the presentation, as we move forward, people will introduce themselves. Okay, but just before we begin, everyone, I want to share a few housekeeping items because these questions typically come up. All attendees' microphones are muted, but we encourage everyone to ask questions through the question panel. And at the end of the formal presentation, we have reserved time to look after those questions. And if you have someone in particular who you think should address the question and you would prefer that, then please put their name with the question to help us when we're moderating at the end of the session. The webinar will be recorded today and made available to everyone who registered via email. You will receive the email shortly after the webinar. If not today, then likely tomorrow. And we encourage people to check their junk box because sometimes we're noticing the recordings are going there. And if you have any problems at all receiving your recording, feel free to reach out to me. My email is all over, I think, the go-to webinar emails that are coming out. So without further ado, I'd like to hand things over to our first guest speaker today, Kayla. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kayla Rachko, and I work for the Community Living Association for South Simcoe, or as we call it, CLASS. So I am not from Awake Labs, but we do partner with them. I am a part of our clinical team here at CLASS, and I work as a behavior analyst. So that means I'm in the homes a lot, working directly with the people we support, as well as our staff to do some training and also to develop programs that are going to support ongoing learning, and that then can also be used to kind of reduce some challenging behavior as well by replacing that challenging behavior with more functional skills. So the focus is really on behavior change, and I am a huge data nerd as a result. So that's a little bit about me. Just talking about Awake Labs and the watch. It's been really amazing to work with them. But the way we got here was we started by looking at our population of people that we work with here at CLASS. And we noticed that we had a lot of really anxious people. And then the one thing that we started to notice is that anxiety seemed to be a bit of a precursor to other challenging behaviors like agitation or aggression. And that was something that we felt we weren't doing the best job that we could be in addressing. So as a behavior analyst, I really focus on behaviors that are observable and measurable. So we try to, in our behavior support plans and other protocols, we try to really explain what anxiety looked like. And so sometimes we were using terms like pacing or increased volume, isolation, changes in breathing, those kinds of things. But the one thing that we know about anxiety is that it often starts more internally, and that is really hard to observe because it's not something we can see. If your heart rate increases, I don't know, unless, like me, you get that nice little panic flush, in which case you know my heart rate is increasing. But because it's happening internally, it also makes it really difficult for some of our support staff or other supports to recognize those really early signs of anxiety. And those really early signs are when interventions are going to be most effective. So that inability to observe and then measure some of those anxiety behaviors means that it's more difficult for some of our supports to build a rapport with people we're supporting, to develop a trusting relationship. And it can sometimes result in anxiety getting past that point where people are able to respond to interventions being offered, and they may kind of shut down and not be ready to engage with those support staff and move on with their day. So we really want to make sure that we could connect with those people and support them in the way that they needed most. And because we weren't able to see what was going on inside of them, that made it really difficult for us to support them. And that's why we kind of decided to partner with Awake Labs to look at anxiety going forward.
Hello, my name is Kathleen Gifford, and I am so grateful to be included in this panel. Thank you to all of you for joining us here, and much gratitude to Awake Labs for the great work that you are doing. I am a mother of a 24-year-old son who is intelligent, has opinions, is a brilliant artist, and one of the greatest teachers I've had the pleasure to learn from. David has autism, is nonverbal, and has a brain injury acquired at birth. The reasons David's father and I agreed to do this webinar to share our story is for this one statement we always seem to hear. That might work for the person that you support, but the person I support is not capable to achieve that. Whenever someone, David or others, has a success with learning a new skill or being reciprocal in a relationship, there has always been a skeptical family member, EA, teacher, support worker, or other professionals that make that statement. I'm here to tell you that that person you are referring to is my son. Life has been difficult and uphill for David his entire life, mostly because people have perceived him as incapable, when actually he has been so trapped by anxiety. The manifestation of this anxiety is self-harm, which he would engage in more than 700 hits a day at some points in his life. Most people in David's life treated this self-harm as a makeup of his disability. Still to this day, David is not diagnosed with an anxiety disorder. As someone who has lived with David for a couple of decades, I know without a doubt when he can receive specific support and information at a crucial moment, he can be included, enjoy being around people and activities, and can trust us with his dreams. When we can quiet his anxiety, he can confidently make choices. When he got in the habit of making choices, we began to realize his dreams. When building towards these dreams, he is perceived as human, relatable, and even admired. David's day-to-day life was very small. One day looked like the next, and we all believed that he could not tolerate change. He was kept out of activities at school, and he became very successful at keeping people at arm's length. He did not want or seem to like social interactions. We tried hard to change this, but always fell short of success. As time marched on, David removed himself from more and more activities. And as our daughters grew and became wives and mothers, David could not tolerate family dinners. And hospitality was the heart of the Gifford household. We were heartbroken, but went on with family dinners, telling David he did not have to go. David always seemed a little sad about this. We all were. He seemed to be relieved at not having not having the wear and tear of attending. A family dinner would look like this. It began as hopeful when David would enter the home of the host. As we would wait for dinner to commence, anxiety would already be stripping David of his confidence. Disruption would ensue, conversation would cease, and result in us needing to leave, oftentimes without finishing a meal. The drive home was filled with disappointment, tears, and even at times resentment and frustration. David never seemed to be able to make that dignified exit. Consequently, he grew up alone, lonely, and isolated. We tried many strategies and interventions. A few of the better attempts are pictured here. So always with lots of planning, including what works best for David. We even tried him and I sitting just off outside another room while the family dinner was happening in another room. And we even tried a service dog, which helped him at school, but not really anywhere else. All these strategies just fell short of the main goal because none of them alerted us to some early signs of anxiety. So year after year, with every birthday, David grew from a child to a man. His dad and I and family were fairly progressive minded and therefore had a lot of allies in the developmental field. There was a lot of people who knew of David, were rooting for him, but most had never even met him or could say they knew him. David became more and more isolated all the time he was growing. At this same time, his artwork was gaining more attention. The community that rooted for him continued to grow, yet they were completely shut off from one another. More people than ever were getting to know of him and learn about him, but David still did not have a single relationship that was not family or paid support. Thank goodness this is not the end of the story.
Thanks, yeah, Kayla and Kathleen. I really appreciate both of you sharing your stories, and something that is, I appreciate every time you tell. So what Kayla and Kathleen have shared with us about how stress has had an impact on their lives and the lives of the people they support, that's exactly the reason why at Awake Labs we decided to build our technology. Because our goal is really to help people better understand and manage their stress so they can spend more time enjoying their life. And for the next few minutes, I'm just going to tell you a little bit more about our technology. And after that, we're going to hear from the panelists again, who are going to share some of their own experiences with this tool that we've built. So what is it? Our technology, it's an app that uses a smartwatch and a mobile device. Now the smartwatch, which is this one right here, it's a Samsung Galaxy Watch, and it's worn by a person who's being supported. And the mobile app displays in real time their levels of strong emotion right here. So those strong emotions are both positive and negative. So it can be something like stress, but it also measures excitement, fear, and anxiety. Now the mobile app is used by the caregiver of that person, and that can be a family member or a personal support worker. So the app uses a clinically validated algorithm that was developed by scientists at Holland Bloorview Hospital. So when I put on my watch, the algorithm that was developed looks at my heart rate and my motion and calculates one single score that captures all of those strong emotions. And on the mobile app, that shows up as a measure of either normal, low, medium, or high. And the watch itself works just like a regular watch. It shows the time and the date, and our technology runs in the background. So when a strong emotion, such as stress, starts to increase, that's when there's a notification that's sent to the app on the caregiver's mobile device. Now this is an important point because the notifications are designed to be sent in the early stages of stress, which means that you might not always be able to see any external signs of what the person is feeling at that time. So what the notification is, it's really a way to let the caregiver know to check in with the person they support. And because it's sent in the early stages of that stress, the visible signs may not be there, but by being aware that the person you support is in the early stages of stress, then we hope that you as a caregiver can provide some support before that emotion escalates. Now, as a caregiver, you and the person you support will likely have some strategies already in place to help address that stress. And we encourage people to use existing techniques for early intervention, things like deep breathing, or even just leaving a stressful situation and talking to the person about how they're feeling as a way to kind of respond and cope with the situation. So when a notification is sent, you have the chance to respond to it on the app and write a short comment, such as what's happening at the time that the notification is being sent, or what kind of strategy that you are using to respond. Pretty much any information that is most useful to you. And what this can help is help you look for patterns and learn about different triggers, or maybe see if certain of these early intervention techniques are working better than others. So not only does the mobile app send you those notifications in the early stages of stress, but you can see the real-time information on the home screen of the app. And another really important feature is the ability to go back and look at past data. So such as a summary of data over the last hour, or a daily summary going back to as far as 2 days ago. So in those screens, you can also see the notifications that were sent and responded to during that time. And we've heard from caregivers who use the app that this particular feature is really useful in helping them reflect on patterns in the data, and can help build cohesion and collaboration within the care teams, because everyone who supports a person has access to this data if they're using the application, and use it to better understand how the person they support is feeling.
Okay. Oh, he was done?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, Paul, we seem to have a little technical difficulty here. Let me just text you and see if we can
Onto
get
it within
things
that
back.
same day.
Oh, he's back.
Ooh, sorry about that.
Sorry, yes, we
Where did I
lost
cut
you
off?
we just lost you, Paul, where I think it was the beginning, partway through that slide, our technology there.
This one here?
Yes, thank you.
Okie dokie. Sorry about that. So if you only missed that part, that's okay. So the mobile app, it sends you notifications in the early stages of that stress. Sorry, I'm just getting messages. Am I still on?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Good. So, but another important feature of the application, outside of the home screen where you can see real-time information, is the ability to go back and look at past data. So this, such as a summary of data from the last hour, and a daily summary going back to 2 days ago. So in those screens, you can also see notifications that have been sent and responded to during that time. So what we've heard from caregivers who use the app is that this feature is particularly useful in helping them reflect on patterns in the data. And what it can also help with is actually help build some cohesion and collaboration within the care team, because everybody who has access to the app can see the same data and can use it to better understand how the person they support is feeling, and use it to work together and inform their approach. Okay. Now, last but not least, for the features of the app is a very important one called the feedback and support. So because this is a new technology, we know that it does take some time to get used to using it. But luckily with this feature, anytime that you're using the app and you have a question about it, you can press the button, you can ask your question, and our team will respond to it within that same day. Okay, sorry, I just want to check to see that I'm still being heard.
Yes.
Go with a yes, perfect. Thanks. So there's a couple of important things that I want to share with you about the technology today. So the app itself is only compatible with this version of the watch, the Samsung Galaxy Watch. You will only receive notifications when both the watch and the app on the mobile device are connected to the internet. So if the watch is not connected, it can store data and send it to the mobile app when the watch reconnects. But in order to get real-time notifications, both devices need to be connected. And the other thing is we are in fact looking for people who have existing support strategies to help manage stress when it occurs. This means that when a notification is sent, you should already have some strategies in place to help you respond to that situation. So we designed our technology for people who have an intellectual or developmental disability. Now, the person who experiences stress wears the watch, and the mobile app is really meant to be used by their caregiver, whether that's a family member or a support professional. And our technology measures many strong emotions, both positive and negative. And we don't want to send alerts to people that may, in fact, increase their stress levels, which is why the app right now is being used by caregivers. But if you are a self-advocate and if you want to use this technology for self-regulation, we'd love to hear from you. And we are going to be sharing our contact information at the end of the webinar, and you're welcome to send us a message. All right, before I turn the mic back over to the panelists, just some final reminders. First, the technology that we've designed is designed to send notifications in the early stages of stress, which means that it might notify you before there's any visible signs that the person who's wearing the watch is experiencing something. And the technology is only as good as the strategies that you already use to help the person you support manage that stress. Because really, it's just a tool. It's never meant to replace the voice of the person you support. It's meant to give additional information to help better understand and better manage stress. And now, to tell me more about the technology and how it's helped them manage their stress, here are Lita and Caitlin from Community Living Windsor.
Okay. Hi. Am I doing okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, my name is Lita. I'm 24 years old and live in my supported home with Community Living Windsor. The thought I wore the watch, my anxiety was extremely hard to cope with. I used my parents as a way to help me cope, but when I wasn't there, I would quickly become very upset. This would cause me to become very angry, yell, and swear. Staff was not able to help me as we were not able to build a relationship that I could trust. I was also hospitalized several times due to my anxiety. And your turn.
Yeah, and my name is Caitlin, and I've been a direct support professional with Community Living Windsor for 9 years. I have been supporting Lita as her coordinator for 4.5 years. When Lita first moved into her home, her anxiety was very high and it was impacting the quality of life. When it was challenging also as we were trying to figure out ways to be creative to help her cope with this anxiety. At times, Lita would create an unsafe space, and this would cause staff to leave her when her anxiety was high and when she really needed the support the most. This type of support did not allow for the support worker and Lita to build a trusting relationship, made it very challenging for us to support her, and I was at a feeling of a roadblock of how to support her.
I had now been wearing the watch for 1.5 years. I lived semi-independently. My relationship with the staff is much better. They're able to help me early on. This has helped me trust them. Because I am more accepting of the help, I call my parents far less, and the conversations are more positive. In the future, I would like to one day monitor my own anxiety with the watch, because one day I would like to live independently on my own.
So as Lita said, she's now been in the pilot program for 1.5 years. And because of the watch, we've been able to build a relationship with Lita that is constantly growing. Lita's staff team is able to notice a spike in anxiety and help her verbally or non-verbally. And then we can check in to see how Lita's coping from there and see what supports we can offer as an early intervention. Lita's able to work through her anxiety and she's more accepting of those supports. Lita's more receptive to learning, developing, and using coping strategies that work best for her. Lita's also able to have more meaningful conversations with her family.
Yeah. I want to interrupt you, but
Awesome. Thank you so much, Caitlin and Lita. for sharing your perspectives and your experiences to date with the technology from Awake Labs. And as direct users, it's so important for the group that's joining us today to hear from you. So very much appreciate you joining the panelists today. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Adriana McVicker, or otherwise known as Addie for maybe some folks on the call. And I work in a management role with Community Living Windsor alongside Peter Marks from a Center for Conscious Care. And so firstly, to our friends at Awake Labs, many thanks again for having us join in for this meaningful webinar. And on behalf of Community Living Windsor and a Center for Conscious Care, many thanks to Community Living Ontario for hosting such an important and also timely webinar. So just a little bit about Community Living Windsor. We offer support and services to about 650 people and families in Windsor to help them live a most optimal life, which, not unlike many organizations who may be joining the call, we recognize that life can look differently for each person and family. And so we do try our best to stay true to our grassroots beginnings and creatively offer supports and services to meet individual needs, honoring their rights and responsibilities to live a life with opportunity, meaning, and purpose. And so to do that, Community Living Windsor often seeks out different organizations for partnership and for cross-pollination of ideas to most optimally support not only the people and families we serve, but also to enhance the growth and development and experience of our support staff. So one of our deep partnerships most recently has been with Peter Marks and a Center for Conscious Care, which then led us to our continued partnership with Awake Labs. So very simply, the work of a Center for Conscious Care and the Conscious Care and Support model looks to alleviate unmet needs that can cause expressions of anxiety, agitations, and aggression. And many of these unmet needs are far upstream from its manifested expression, which causes us as supporters to look more deeply and clearly at the root cause. And so through Peter, we met Paul and the crew from Awake Labs. And their technology is an incredible tool to help recognize an increase in physiological responses before any outward manifestations, lending to the supporter a tool to be able to be present, tune into the situation, and possibly check in with the person whom they're supporting to see how they're feeling. And so this tool enables the supporters to provide support proactively and respond in a timely way to meet the needs of the person when they may be experiencing an elevation of anxiousness. So the Conscious Care and Support model, along with the innovative technology of Awake Labs, has been incredibly meaningful for our employees to increase their confidence, resulting in a more optimal experience for the people we serve. So with that as a bit of an introductory, I'd like to pass the virtual mic over to my colleague, Erica Taylor, just to talk a little bit more deeply about some other experiences with Community Living Windsor.
Thanks, Addie. Hello, everyone. My name is Erica. I'm a manager of support at Community Living Windsor. So along with Addie, I want to thank everyone for this opportunity as well. As Addie stated, we at Community Living Windsor do our best to offer optimal support to those we serve, focusing on each person's personalized individual needs. So as a manager, I strive to work hard to work with people and their teams to focus on proactive ways to respond to each person's support needs, to help create a meaningful life someone wants to live, and enhance the supporter's experience with them while at work, creating both a more positive outlook on life for that person and a more positive work environment for our staff. Sometimes we figure out exactly what the person needs and how they need us to support them. Sometimes after speaking to everyone in that person's circle of family and friends and supporters, we get to a point where we know this person needs something else. There's something that we're missing. So at that point, when someone is struggling and we've exhausted all ideas, when we think we've tried everything, we often reach out to others for additional options: healthcare professionals, therapists, behavior consultants, family networks, and independent facilitators. It's been our experience that referrals for specialized services can take a while, upwards of years. Only if somebody is presenting serious challenges and greatly risking their own safety or the safety of their supporters do they get bumped up to the top of waiting lists. This is hard for those we support who may be greatly struggling internally and are unable to express this to us. They may not be showing their anxieties or struggles externally to those points, but inside they're in pain. When it comes to direct support and when people are most anxious, often we're put in a position to keep people safe by creating distance and isolating the supporter from the person supported. This seems counterintuitive at times because for many, that's often the time that someone who is feeling unsafe needs people the most, not isolation. As employers and supporters, this can be our greatest hurdle. At no time are we willing to put anyone in harm's way, but at the same time, we understand that these times are the most crucial in helping to alleviate someone's anxiety and prevent them from reaching a tipping point. As an organization, we try to be most diligent to best figure out what can cause anxiety-provoking escalations. We look for antecedents and patterns. Then we look to enhance our support, enhance our supports by avoiding those antecedents for more optimal outcomes with less agitation. As well, we want to prevent our supporters from getting hurt, lower those accident injury reports, reduce health and safety risks. And as much as we want optimal experiences for those we support, we also want that for our staff. We want to foster and build on those positive, trusting relationships between the two. Addie, just wondering if you could elaborate on the impact of what this technology has offered to us as an organization.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Erica. And so as we consider how Lita has described her experience and expressed what she sees her life to look like in the future, we're doing what we can to support Lita to navigate a life of her choosing. So living with less anxiety, less hospital visits, learning skills and tools to help regulate her own emotions and gain more skills of independence with a bright future and a goal of living on her own. And so the pilot project with Awake Labs enabled Lita and her supporters to have access to a tool that helped not only supporters learn how they can more optimally respond in a timely way, but through that, as Caitlin and Lita have highlighted, the timeliness of response encouraged stronger, more trusting relationships between Lita and her supporters during times where she may have actually felt a bit uneasy. And as an organization, we have known the crew from Awake Labs now for just over 3 years and have committed ourselves to assist in fine-tuning the technology to best meet the needs of those who may use it. And so the technology as it's presented today, as Paul has shown, was not the technology that was presented to us 3 years ago. And through feedback, Awake Labs has continually doctored its usability to make it an even more useful tool for supporters and family members. And so we've engaged in a second round of a pilot project to offer some additional continual quality improvement with the technology. And we've also onboarded 3 additional participants and teams. And so the reports from the team so far have been incredibly positive. And a common theme that's been expressed is that supporters feel that they can intervene with the skills that they know in a more timely way. And so supporters have also shared that they've been able to discover patterns that are associated with heightened physiological responses that they didn't even realize were patterns. And they, also shared by Lita's supporter Caitlin, are then able to explore how they can modify their approach to better accommodate the patterns or to alleviate any unnecessary episodes of anxiousness. And so Erica, as a manager of support, just wondering if maybe you could speak to the impact of the technology when you're managing teams and the increased capacity of building more of a consistent approach to how support can be offered.
Sure, thanks, Addie. So as a manager of support, it's very apparent that the importance of being a cohesive team with open communication is key to everyone's success. To provide that optimal support and optimal experiences at work, the whole team must be given opportunities to experience successes and failures without judgment, to see what some out-of-the-box supports can do for somebody and to see what works and what doesn't. As managers and leaders, we need to ensure we foster these gains by allowing people to work through these new ways of supporting without repercussions. We need to make sure that teams know we're there to support them as well through change and uncertainty. We're there to help them and learn with them. This technology, along with other supports, has created an opportunity for teams to see what positive change can come from working together, from introducing new ideas and working hard together to learn new ways of offering support. For Lita and her team, among others, this technology has built their trust with one another, built their confidence. Both the person supported and the supporter become better equipped to respond to anxieties. Their skills of recognizing their emotions and their abilities to regulate them grow. Everyone has the opportunity to grow and learn from this. It helps to expand people's knowledge of how anxiety manifests and builds. It increases people's empathy towards those who suffer from anxiety. This change in perspective leads to better mental health for everyone involved. And this technology can have an impact on our organization on a large scale. Everyone needing support, for everyone needing support, consistency helps create a sense of calm. So when someone has a team of 10 to 15 different supporters, some of those supporters could be newly on board as well. Having something to help each one of those supporters provide that support in the same way can greatly increase that person's sense of trust and calm. To know that every person helping them will respond in the same way can prevent rising anxieties. This technology can provide that. It's a tool that each supporter has that gives them that heads up and the reminder as to how to respond. It provides a way to collect data in a timely manner, which helps us discover those antecedents and patterns we sometimes have such a hard time figuring out. So I would like to pass the mic on now to a fellow panelist, Kayla, from class.
Thanks, Erica.
You're welcome.
So class has been involved with Awake Labs for about a year and a half now. And we have 4 people we support who have been wearing the watch. We are a bit of a rural agency, so we've had some technical issues. So we have one person not wearing one right now because the Wi-Fi is not working in the house. We've got one person that is away getting treatment elsewhere right now. So we have 2 people consistently wearing it at this point in time. And we chose the 4 people that are participating. We got together and kind of identified who we were really struggling to provide the best support to. And the 4 gentlemen that happen to be wearing it right now, there was a lot of anxiety and a lot of aggressive incidents. And so we were seeing lots of staff injuries as well, which then put up, as Caitlin so nicely put it, some roadblocks to support. Because staff were either afraid to approach that person, the person didn't trust them when they were saying, can we help you? And so that was really a challenge that we were facing. And so these 4 people, we said, let's see if this can make a difference for them. What we've seen is that staff are now able to respond so much sooner and more effectively to these 4 gentlemen's levels of anxiety as it comes up. And that's resulted in an increase in trust and rapport building. So some of the gentlemen are much more accepting of offers of support. And even the man who right now they don't have Wi-Fi, so he's not wearing the watch, staff are now better able to identify some of his early signs and respond sooner, even without the notifications, which has been really great because now he trusts that when they come and approach him, it's because they're there to help him, and there's less barriers there. And we've also had someone who's had some success in recognizing their own anxiety and asking for help that way, which has been great. We have seen a marked decrease in aggressive incidents for 2 of the people that are wearing the watch, and we've seen some decrease for the others. And we're working through some of those other challenges with them as well. Some of the people, as I'm sure many of the attendees know, there can be some very complex people that we're supporting. And so as we can use this technology, it's been so amazing to integrate that into their behavior plans and response strategies, to see that decrease in that change and an increase in confidence, not only with the staff, but the people wearing it as well. So like I said earlier, as a behavior analyst, I'm always looking for what we can observe, what we can see, measure. And what I'm always trying to do is look for trends or antecedents, those things that happen before a challenging behavior, that are kind of a common theme for that person, so that we can adjust our supports to kind of work around those triggers. So things that we kind of identified, and some of them we already knew, but this really confirmed it for us and helped us develop better supports for them. Shift change has been a really difficult time for lots of people. Same thing with sometimes visiting your family is very exciting, but can also be very stressful sometimes. Large events or even doctor's appointments can cause a lot of anxiety for people. So just being able to track changes in their anxiety levels leading up to those things has really helped improve our support. And as we make changes to programming, we can also see if those changes have been effective, because we can use some of that measure to see if anxiety is decreasing. The other thing that was really important to us was to be able to use some of this information for staff training, so we can identify more kind of critical decision-making points for them in terms of how they're responding. And while we're doing that after the fact, we can then apply it to future incidents and future support. And we've also really been able to expand our knowledge of how anxiety is working for these 4 gentlemen and what's going to work best for them on an individualized basis. We do share a lot of the information with the psychiatrists or other members of the treatment team that we work with, and they've been very receptive to it and really love having that feedback. And we share that as part of like a package with them. So we include information from families and information from the person supported and staff, as well as other data that we've been collecting, and having that extra piece of knowing what the anxiety looks like in the moment has been really helpful in making treatment decisions going forwards. So our experience with Awake Labs has been absolutely incredible, and that they've even chosen to include me in this webinar is so exciting, and to have got to work with all of these incredible panelists has been really great. Awake Labs has been so responsive and supportive to all of our, or sometimes my many requests and feedback. And I genuinely feel that using this technology has changed the lives of the 4 people that are using it.
Okay, so now that we have some of those darker days behind us, I'll continue with our experience. Today, David has a microboard, which is an incorporated circle of people who know and care about him. One way this support shows up is the commitment to seek community first to meet David's needs. It is through this philosophy that we met Peter Marks with Center for Conscious Care. Now we were on a path to addressing David's unmet needs. It is where we first became convinced that David was living with anxiety. It was while on this path that we were introduced to Awake Labs. We were discovering that anxiety may be at the core of David's unmet needs. We sought out Paul and Andrea, who happened to be at a conference that we were attending. We learned of the pilot project for Awake Labs and the wearable technology. After a couple of conversations, there were some things to consider. First, we needed to partner with a local agency. That meant that 3 other people could try out this technology along with David. Next, we focused on what this technology would mean for David. He has many sensitivities, and Wi-Fi is one of them. Hats, jewelry, pretty much any accessory David would not wear. But we had to believe that he would be able to wear the watch. Paul and Andrea met David in our home and worked with us to help David be successful. David put the watch on, and it was a non-issue in terms of it being an annoyance for him. I think he liked the attention that it brought. Paul and Andrea walked us through the technology, activated the app and the iPod to achieve a baseline of David's biorhythms. A few hours went by, and there was not a single chime from David's iPod that alerted us to an anxiety spike. Our learning had begun. We determined a baseline for David while he was in the midst of fight, flight, or freeze. David was in fact frozen with anxiety while we set up the watch. That was new information for us. The iPod did not chime because we got a baseline at a very high anxiety level. Once that was adjusted, we began approaching new activities. Gingerly at first, we were all a little thin-skinned from years of failed attempts. We all had to be brave, not just David. We started listening for chimes and placing our comments around what we were learning as early signs of anxiety. If there was a spike, we would provide intervention and give him the option to leave. As we practiced this strategy, David's confidence grew, and we began taking more and more risks in community and with activities. He began walking through his art exhibits, attending local outdoor markets and festivals. The technology resulted in David having better support in real-time happenings. He began meeting people that had been in his invisible community for many years. He was now introduced to people and shaking their hands or giving a nod and eye contact. Finally, David could make his exits with dignity. Life at college became a better learning place. He attended his first microboard meeting 1 year after incorporation, and we hosted our first family dinner after many years in September of 2019. It was my birthday. We had only been using the technology for a few months, so agreeing to host the dinner was a bold move. We knew we would be relying on the technology fairly heavily. We were feeling brave enough to take the chance. The technology did not let David down. David stayed in the room with all of us, his dad and I, his sisters and his brothers-in-laws, and 5 nieces and nephews. We had dinner and conversation and laughter. David was sitting with his dad, who was keeping watch of the iPod. Sure enough, there was a spike in anxiety, straight up to high. Outwardly, David appeared calm. He was sitting still and quiet, but inside he was screaming with anxiety, yet outwardly frozen. Immediately, we asked the children to go downstairs and continue their play, and 2 adults left the room to assist the children. David remained quiet and seated. There was no outburst. There was no self-harm, just quiet. The intervention took about 20 seconds to complete, and in that short space of time, David's anxiety returned to normal, David's dignity intact. In total, the party lasted for 5 hours. It was a huge success and one our family had waited years to have. Moving forward, David continues to live with his technology. We have all gained confidence, and David celebrates in his community and contributions. The technology is not perfect, but it has certainly changed David's life. He continues to teach us about his anxiety, and we learn and evolve. When David shows sensitivity to the Wi-Fi, we simply remove the watch for a short period of time. He is always eager to put the watch back on.
Thank you, Kathleen. Thanks for sharing that story again. And I want to say a huge thank you to everyone who's attending the panel or the webinar today, everyone who's in the audience, and for all the panelists, Lita and Caitlin, Addie and Erica, Kayla, Kathleen, the team of Community Living Ontario. We really, really appreciate all the work that you've been doing with us and everything that went into making today possible. So before we open the floor for questions, I just want to share with you how you can access our technology today. and a slide with our contact information is going to be left on the screen for you while we're answering your questions in a couple seconds. So if you want to get access to the technology today, here's how you do it. If you're a family caregiver, you can go to our website, which is awakelabs.com, and click on the button that says sign up today. Now, when you click sign up today, we'll take you to a page that will ask you for payment information. And please note that we do have to finalize the details of an agreement with Holland Bloorview before we're able to process your order. Excuse me. But that means that you won't be charged until everything's ready to go. So after you've submitted that information, I will schedule a phone call with you just to confirm a couple of technical requirements, such as a reliable internet connection. And when everything is confirmed, we'll be able to ship your order, and again, waiting after the agreement has been signed. So, and once again, please note that we won't actually charge anything until everything is ready to be confirmed. So we are offering the technology at a special price, special discount price for families during the pandemic. The total cost, including HST, is $998.91, Canadian. So that's inclusive of HST, and this full cost is all covered under passport funding if you live in Ontario. And the price includes the Samsung Galaxy Watch, like the one that I'm wearing here, 1 year subscription to the application, and support from our team during that time. And if you are a professional caregiver, or if you represent a community living agency or another similar type of agency, and you would like to use the technology for more than one of the people that you support, then please send me an email directly at paul@awakelabs.com. And once we've had a chance to connect over email, that's when we'll schedule a call. We'll discuss the next steps and be ready to get started at your agency. So once again, thanks to everyone. And I should be remiss if I said thanks again to all the panelists, all the audience, Holland Bloorview as well, who was instrumental in the development of this technology. And I'll turn it over to Heather at this point, who's going to be managing the Q&A part of the presentation.
Hi, great. Thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciated hearing more about the technology and learning myself today. It was very informative. And I have a bunch of questions myself, but I'm going to actually take a look at the panelists here first and see what we might start with. One of the questions, Paul, and I'm sorry if you did answer this, but maybe you could answer it again, was can multiple people have the app tracking the same watch?
That's a great question. Right now, the way that it's set up is one watch talks to one mobile device, but it is possible to expand that access to more than one mobile device. That's not available today, but it's certainly something that we've heard from people and that we're working to build. So to wrap that up, it's currently not in the state that it exists today, but it's something that we can accommodate in the future.
Okay, and the next question is kind of related a little bit about the watch again. I think Debbie is asking here, any chance of one for the Apple Watch? I guess there's some Apple Watch users out there wanting to know.
Yeah, no, that's another question that we get quite a bit. Yes, it is something that we want to accommodate. Again, unfortunately, right now it is just for the Samsung Watch, but we do recognize there's a lot of different types of wearables up there. And we do want to work to expanding access to more than just the Samsung Watch. So yeah, unfortunately, it's not something that we have today, but we know that it's something that a lot of people are looking for, and so that's part of what we want to work towards as well.
Okay, another great question here is how much is the ongoing subscription?
For sure, yeah, that's a great question. So right, the special discount price right now is that inclusive of the 1 year subscription, and if you want to subscribe for an additional year afterwards, it's priced right now at $516 for the year. So that's broken down to about $43 a month. And that would be for the price for families moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Now, this is a question that I don't quite understand myself, but I think it's a good one to ask then, because maybe others don't either. But are you working towards having the technology work with data as opposed to Wi-Fi?
Yeah, great question. Yes, short answer, yes. There are some models of the Samsung Watch that can connect over data. I have a model of it at home, and I have yet to connect it to my data plan, but it is something that we're like actively testing right now. So that is something that we're working towards as well. Yeah.
Okay, great. And of course, I'm going to run through some more that I'm seeing here, but please, if your question doesn't get answered, I should clarify that we will ensure we send out a communication covering off everything that you need. And Paul has shared his email as well, but let me just keep going here. When I look here, what about people, Paul, who may have sensitivities to wearing items or having things on? Have you looked at that? Is there a sensory sensitivity been considered?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer part of that question, and if any of the other panelists want to address it, you're welcome to. For us, yeah, we've definitely worked with people over the last little bit who have some sensitivities to certain materials. One of the things that we've done is, because the Samsung Watch is like a commercially available device, there's different bands that you can actually purchase made of different materials, and that has helped. So I'm wearing one right now that's like a rubber type of material, but there's Velcro. Anyway, so part of what we've done is people have access to bands of different kinds of material. And I apologize if there's noise in the background. Someone has decided to start cutting the grass outside my window, so I'm going to move in a sec. And as for other sensitivities, I think with a couple of people, before we actually got started with wearing the watch itself, I think we, with the agencies, we like worked together and found kind of like cheap, or like maybe some of those plastic silicone bands or something like a watch, so people can get used to wearing something before actually trying to wear the watch and see if that's something that they could tolerate. So there's a number of different strategies that we've used, but if any of the other panelists want to take over while I just move in a less noisy area and talk about some of the things that that we've done to address those sensitivity questions.
So
sure,
I would love to.
Oh, go. Yes, Kathleen.
Yeah, I would like to answer some of that, because David has a lot of sensitivities, and it runs like a river for him. So sometimes he's sensitive to something and sometimes he isn't. So we are always checking in with his comfortableness. We use the rubber watch band. He seems to like that one the best. But we also use the, right now you can't get the technology wet. So we use that as a strength. And if David is really insisting on or really being bothered by the Wi-Fi or the watch, we just find creative ways to remove it. And we do tasks in the kitchen or tasks with water or other things where it's off of his wrist for 10 to 15 minutes at a time, and then he's always eager to just put it right back on. So we're just always checking in with him to make sure, because of his sensitivities.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. This question may be for the agencies participating. How do you make sure that the choices of the person wearing the watch are respected? What if the person who has an intellectual disability doesn't want to wear the watch? I know Kathleen's had a fortunate circumstance where David, once it was on, he actually didn't mind it at all. But what if they do? And so what are some strategies you put in place?
Addie, do you look like you want to say something?
That's what I was waiting at. I thought she was going to. I can speak to that, and then Addie, if you wanted to add on. So, I mean, we do everything possible to make sure that it is the person's choice, whether or not they want to either wear this watch or, go out one day or stay home, whatever the case may be. So what we've done from the beginning when we partnered with the Wake Labs, we will meet with the person, we will meet with their families, their support teams, just to make sure that we're asking them if they want to wear it, if they would like to, try this out, see if it works for them, see if it doesn't. There's been many people that we support who flat out said no right away, and it's like, okay, you don't want to try it out. There were some people that we support who tried it out for a couple days and then said, you know what, I don't like it, I don't want to wear the watch. So that was that. So really, it's just making sure that we're paying attention to what they want. We're asking them if they want to do it. If they can verbally say yes or no to us, then we're going to listen to what they say. If it's somebody who might not be able to verbalize that to us, we're really looking to their teams and their families to look for those ways that that person does say yes or no, and listen to what they say. Addie, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, sure. I think a big thing around consent is, recognizing implied consent. So if someone is put on the watch and is continuing to wear it, that's great. That's implied that this is okay. I think one of the things as well, and it's not unlike introducing something new to some folks that maybe struggle just generally with something new in their life. So there might be an introduction, but then there's a bit of a balance between consistency and persistency of when we offer the new technology. So we really strongly encourage with the supporters or family members that if the person's typically is very aversive right out of the gate, but we know that maybe after just really knowing them well, that maybe after a solid week or two, we'll be persistent, kindly recognizing boundaries, but knowing that that's may be the way and how they operate, welcoming new things in their life. So just very summing up to add on to your point is just really knowing folks well, of what works for them, and then as supporters we're open and recognizing their implied consent when they've offered it.
Okay, great. Just a question now. I can't believe we've got this far into the webinar without saying the word pandemic, but I am going to go there. Have people been using the technology different because of the pandemic? Have there been different benefits? Maybe Kathleen or Lita or someone would like to respond to that?
Sure, I can. So the pandemic just provided opportunity to teach us new information about Dave. So we haven't noticed that Dave has really struggled with more anxiety other than the first couple of weeks when life first began to change. So what we are seeing now is not an awful lot of anxiety, but there are some outbursts that aren't registering as anxiety. So where he's very loudly telling us he wants parts of his life back, but he's not anxious about it. So yes, we are still maybe dealing with behaviors or the way he is able to communicate in his limited way, but always learning about his anxiety and what's not anxiety.
Thank you. So one of the questions I see come up here, Paul, perhaps you can expand on this. Will you be expanding the duration that you can go back to look at the data? Someone's asking potentially a month instead of 2 days?
Yeah. So what's available on the iPod right now, just to view through the application, yeah, it is just that 1 hour and the 2 days ago. But Kayla might be able to explain this a little bit more as well. There is a way for us to access information from like a lot longer than that, like essentially from the time that someone starts wearing the watch, and we can compile that information and share it with people. So that's not something that's integrated on the app right now. But depending on the kind of feedback that we get, if that's something that's useful to have, then it's definitely something that we can consider building. In fact, we're on our way to providing a tool like that to agencies that we've been working with specifically. So short answer is yes, we're 100% open to considering it. It's a matter of integrating it within the application in a way that's useful to who's going to be using it. But maybe, yeah, Kayla, if you want to talk a little bit about that kind of data that we've been sharing with you as well.
Yeah, sure. It's actually a really great question. I have been bugging Paul about this for ages now, and just saying it would be really great for me, instead of me sending him an email and saying, hey, I was hoping you could, compile some graphs for me from this date, this date, this date, and this date for me to be able to look back myself. So it's a great question. Paul has been so good about taking in my emails, and he's very quick too about getting back that information. And then we've been able to use it to kind of overlay incidents and look at what actually happened here so we can learn from it. So Paul has been promising me a dashboard for a little while. Right now, the 2 days has been really helpful for our frontline staff, for sure. For me, as a part of the clinical team, it's great for me to be, right now I can't go into the homes to go kind of see that 2-day summary. But when I'm there, that's really helpful as well, to be able to look back. But yeah, a month is coming, right, Paul?
Yes, we're working on it.
Okay, I have a question here I see in the panel. Any restrictions to the type of mobile device that the app can be installed on?
So the app that agencies have been using right now is on iOS, and the Android version is something that is coming very soon. So right now it has been used only on iOS, but the Android is something that's coming up. And by the time that everything is figured out and we're able to process orders, the Android app should be available. So as far as the types of devices for the agencies, we've actually supplied with iPods, just as the device that they use to look at the app. I have mine installed on my iPhone. We'll do some testing with iPads as well, because that's something that that a lot of people are using. So yeah, I guess that's the state right now.
Okay, great. We'll probably just do a couple more questions, Paul.
Sure.
Actually, this one's for me. So does community living get approached often about testing technologies? And if so, what made you decide to partner with Awake Labs? So we do not get, Community Living Ontario at least, does not get approached very often. I think a couple of times in my tenure, I've been there 5 years. So we don't get approached often, but what really appealed to us about Awake Labs was the experience with our member agencies and the positive results and experiences that people supported have seen and caregivers have shared with us. As you can see from the webinar today, really helped us in working with them to become a strategic partner. So we really talked to people who worked with Paul, the co-founder, along with Andrea, and understood that they shared similar vision and values to our organization, and really wanted to help people being supported in a way that made their lives less stressful and more enjoyable. So that's the long answer there. People feel free to reach out if you have other technology ideas. We are open to hearing about them. I think one of the final questions, maybe before we start to wrap up, I'm just having a look here. Do you have any advice, either as an agency or as a family, on how to make sure the technology is being used properly? Who would like to jump in there?
I can, just to start, and then maybe Erica and Addie or even Kathleen want to add something. When we first put it in, we had some barriers in terms of staff buy-in. So that's one thing that we definitely recommend, spending that time before before you actually have someone wearing the watch and people are using it. Supporting staff, training them, showing them how that technology works. Once we were able to show, like, you get this notification and you respond, and we're not seeing that escalation, we saw more in from our staff, and then more success as a result. So for us, it was really that if we could go back and do it all over again, for sure we would involve the frontline staff from the team right from the beginning when we were making the decision to even put that technology in place within the home. And then just in terms of the people supported, I mean, Awake Labs has been so person-centered through all of this, and making sure that the people are comfortable with the technology, that they want to continue to use it, and that they're getting the support they need. So even involving the person supported from that very beginning, getting the full buy-in from the whole team right from the start would be really beneficial for sure.
Yeah, and as new people come onto Dave's team, that's all sort of managed by his family and his microboard. This is presented to them as this is one of the tools that helps support Dave and gives information that you're going to want to know. So we just, it's a non-negotiable in our household. If you're working with David, then you get comfortable with the technology.
Okay, great, thank you. I have a couple more questions in the panel. Will this device work for someone with seizures?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So I believe there are people that we've worked with in other agencies who have seizures, and they've worn or participated in a pilot that we've run at a different agency. And it was used with some degree of success with the team, but we haven't done as much deep investigation to understand what the impact of seizures are in terms of how things are being captured in the application. So it is an excellent question, and one that merits more research, honestly. So yeah, I mean, that's as far as I can answer right now. And
Sure.
From Windsor or class, if there's anyone else that that you're thinking of who, yeah, if you've come across that case as well. But on our end, I know that there needs to be more investigation done to understand really what the impacts of the seizure might be for someone wearing the watch.
That's understandable. I have another quick question. Does it monitor sleep patterns if it is worn to bed?
So there's not like a sleep tracking function to understand whether or not someone is like having a good quality sleep or not. It's not in the same way that something like a Fitbit claims to do. But some people who are participating in pilots have worn it during the night because the teams are interested in understanding if the person is experiencing some amount of strong emotion or stress while they're in bed, or because people have those particular people might have a habit of getting up in the middle of the night, and those are times that are difficult for them. So no, it does not measure sleep patterns specifically, like the quality of your sleep or REM cycles or something like that. But people have worn it to bed if they choose to. When we meet someone and we set up the device with them, usually what we'll recommend is that someone take it off at night and actually use that time to charge it. One, because it sort of establishes a good routine and makes sure that the watch is charged and ready to go the next day. And also because, you know, our own team has tried it while sleeping, and we don't find it particularly comfortable. And so we just make that known that it might not be the most comfortable thing to wear while going to bed.
Okay, I see one question here. I think what we'll do, Paul, maybe is finish up with this question, and then if there's anything in the panel that we see coming in that we weren't able to answer today, we'll follow up, as I had mentioned before. But before we let everyone go, maybe we'll do one more. Is it available to children to use as well? So I guess, is there an age factor in the technology and using this device?
Yeah, that's a question that, it's a good question. It's one that we get a lot. The size of the watch itself is something that is restrictive for kids or someone who's quite small. I mean, it's a big watch, it's a bulky watch, and it needs to be worn fairly snug on someone's wrist in order for the readings to pick up accurately. And so a big part of the restriction for age, I mean, we work with adults, I think as young as 19 and all the way up to senior years. A big part of that reason is because of the size of the watch itself. And also because, the people that we've partnered with support adults. We recognize that, anxiety isn't something that is limited to adults. It's something that kids, that youth experience. And so we're always looking for wearable solutions that are more appropriate for kids, and that we can start investigating how to essentially implement this technology for younger kids. But right now the focus is really on providing this technology to adults. So age range, I would say, 18 plus, or maybe 16, depending on if someone is of a size to support, wearing this watch.
Okay, great. I think even though we're a little early, we'll wrap up there today. The panelists have been so patient. Everyone has been. It's been a wonderful, very informative webinar. I cannot thank all of you enough for today and sharing everything with us, and for sharing your stories, Lita and Kathleen, very much appreciated. And like I mentioned, you should receive the recording, and we'll attempt to do a follow-up to any questions that we missed today during the webinar. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Paul. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.